Well, hey everyone, I wanted to make a video quickly going over some of the features of our LiveMix CS Duo mixers. These are from a company called Digital Audio Labs, and these are the mixers that we use to mix our in-ears. So I'm going to go over them very quickly and briefly. There's a lot more information that we could go into if we wanted to, but we're going to keep it kind of short here. So the first thing that I'm going to mention to you is that you can see there's an A side and a B side. Right? A is blue, B is red, and these are two completely separate mixes. One of the reasons that we use these mixers is because they offer you two completely separate mixes. So anything that you do in A does not affect what you hear in B. Anything you do in B, you can't hear it in A. They're completely separate from one another. So if you're sharing one of these units with somebody else, rest assured that anything that you do, even if you turn them all the way down, they won't get offended. They can't hear it. So everything that I'm about to talk about only affects you and your mix, no one else. All right. So again, you'll see A is blue, B is red, and all of these lights here will change to indicate what side you're on. If the screen is blue, but I try to adjust it using these red knobs over here, you'll see the screen quickly turn red. You have to use the red knobs to adjust the B side, and you have to use the blue knobs to adjust the A side. So just make sure that you're using whichever one you're supposed to. Otherwise, when you try to adjust it, it's going to pop back. So that's the first thing. I'm going to be working with the B mix here. Second thing I'll mention, you can see there's 24 different channels here. So you have 24 different sources that you can use to mix from. And you can access them either by touching them on the screen, and you can see the names of them, right? All the vocals and electric guitars, keys, bass, or by pressing these buttons here on the unit to switch between the channels that you want. Now you can see the screen is only so big, so you can only fit 12 of the 24 channels on each screen. So you have this button down here, show 13 to 24. Or conversely, if you're looking at 13 to 24, it says show 1 to 12. So you can pop back and forth between your screens, or you can just use these buttons here on the lower line here to get you to the second layer, or on the upper line to get you to the first layer. So that's how you would switch back and forth and choose the channels that you want to adjust. And then you're going to use this knob right here primarily to do most of your adjustments. It's called Adjust Volume and Pan, and it has two functions. Both functions are controlled by twisting the knob left and right, and you'll see the very small channel that I'm adjusting is moving, but it also gives you a magnification of it here at the bottom. So right now I'm adjusting volume. It defaults to volume. If you want to adjust pan, which is putting things in your left ear or in your right ear, which I would highly encourage you to do, you actually click this button in. And then you can see all of these have changed now to, instead of being a meter, it sort of shows you sending the signal to your right ear or to your left ear. Especially vocalists, this is really important to make sure that you put all the vocals out around you. You can see here vocal 5 is in the center, whereas all the other vocals are spread around. All right. So this controls your volume and your pan, and then after a while, once you're on the pan setting, if you don't touch it for a little while, it'll switch back to volume, and you see it just switched back to volume there. So just make sure, if you want to adjust the volume of something, make sure you're looking at the volume display. If you want to adjust the pan, make sure you're looking at the pan display. Additionally, another thing that you're going to be touching most of the time is this master volume adjustment up here, and this one I want to caution you with, because your master volume is the volume of everything, okay? Not just one thing, but everything. When you adjust the master volume, everything gets louder or everything gets quieter. What I recommend is starting with your master volume about halfway and working with whatever your instrument is. If you're a vocal and a guitar or a keys or drums, whichever it is, pump those up and turn everything else down. So that you have a comfortable volume of yourself. Work with your master volume there until you're comfortable with the level that you're at, and then bring everything up slightly. But you can't, if you turn everything up too much, you won't hear anything. The trick to that is if you can't hear anything, if you don't have enough of yourself, that's where the master volume is going to come in. You want to turn everything else down, turn yourself up, and then turn your master volume up. All right, so just be careful adjusting your master volume. Again, it's the volume of everything, not the volume of one thing. The volume and pan adjust is the volume of one thing individually. Additionally, there's a group selection here, the Me button. If you click this in, it brings you to a page. Let's say you're playing drums and you want to be able to turn all of the drums up at the same time. You can go in here, switch between 13 and 24 or 1 and 12, and select all of the drums. And so now you'll see all these buttons lit up, signifying they're in a group. So now if I turn this Me knob right here, it will turn all of the drums up or all of the drums down. And it keeps them at whatever ratio they're at. It turns all of them up by the same factor. So that's nice if you want to get to you specifically. What I like to do as well, and I'm just going to kind of cancel all of these out here. What I like to do, you can see it says show next group. From this Me group setting, you can also get to just multiple groups. So what I like to do is put the room mics on a group. I also like to put the drums left and right on a group. And you could also, put the keyboards on a group if you wanted to. But this way, when I adjust the drums, I adjust both of them at the same time. When I adjust the room, I adjust both of them at the same time. So one last thing I want to show you is just to basically controls under your master here to make sure that you don't go deaf. So these are important. Again, just like the volume and pan clicks in, the Me clicks in, the master volume clicks in. When you click that in, it brings you to this master configuration, and you've got a number of different settings here. And again, all of this is only for you. When you do this, it only affects your mix, no one else's, so feel free to run wild with this. You can adjust your EQ. If you don't know what that means, then probably just leave it where it is, leave them all in the center. But if you want a bit more low end, a bit more thump, you can adjust that. If things are a little bit too shrill and bright, you could turn that down, or maybe you want more, whatever you want to do. Your high pass filter settings here, if you don't know what a high pass filter is, just leave it off. But essentially it cuts out low frequencies, but better just not to play with that. Your master dynamics, this is your compression amount. So compression will kind of squish everything together. It's going to take your quiet things and make them a little bit louder, your louder things and make them a little bit quieter. But too much of a good thing is never a good thing. So maybe a little bit of light compression is something that you could use, but me personally, I tend to leave it off most of the time. So just be careful with that and mix to taste. And again, if you don't know what compression is, better just to leave it off. Next, you've got your master reverb. Now, on our Cherry Hill campus, we have room mics to help you get a sense of what it feels like, what it sounds like in the room. But if you want a bit more of that, you can utilize this reverb here. And just a word of caution with the reverb, you have small room, medium room, large room. If you have large room set pretty much all the way up, you're not going to be able to hear anything. It's going to sound awful and terrible. I'd encourage you not to do that. So if anything, a little bit of medium room, a little bit of small room, but try not to use too much of it because reverb may make things sound full, but too much reverb is going to make it sound indistinguishable. So just be careful with that. And the last thing, potentially the most important thing of everything you're doing here, controlling your master output. So you have control over a headphone stereo mix or a balanced mono mix. If you're using headphones and you want to pan things left and right, which again, I encourage you to do to make room for things in your mix, you want to keep it on headphone stereo. You also have a volume limit, so you can turn this down. So this is basically going to limit your master volume, okay, and make it so you can't turn it up past a certain point. That's a good thing. Don't go deaf. Lastly, you have this peak limiter. Now what the peak limiter will do is anything that gets really stinking loud, it'll make it quiet. So the more you peak limit, the more it's going to limit loud things. So be careful with that, but make sure that you keep that on so that nothing loud happens and you go deaf. All right, so that is a quick overview of pretty much all the features that you could use inside of our live mix systems. If you have any questions, ask your sound guys and they would love to help you out. All right? Have fun.